Good morning, all, or happy to lunch. Happy lunch for my friends in South Downs and others living in the future. Welcome to Kalbardr's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Kalbardr. I am Lord Kalbardr Geiler, Commander of the Meridian Cross, Commander Argent Comet, Commander Argent Lamp, Osprey, and Reaper, coming to you live as always from the Baron of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridia's. Tired, guys. So since this show is coffee themed, today's coffee of choice is New England's Coffee's cinnamon hazelnut, and it's lovely. I love it. So now that introductions are out of the way and things, and be slightly less formal today because I'm exhausted. All right, so today we're talking about power imbalance in the SCA. So go over here to the chat so I can see people. For those of you watching, thank you for showing up and hanging out with me this morning. Oh God, my screen is all off today, guys. Excuse me for that. Hold on. Blam, there we go. All right. Sorry, running late today. Okay, so today's topic is one that it's a bit of a pain point for me. And I'm going to kind of come out from a couple different angles and discuss a couple different pieces of this. But as I have mentioned in the past, this Coffee with Kalbardr is literally my my personal journal, so to speak, of things that I think about in the shower or things that I think about before I'm going to bed. So the power imbalance has a couple different points. And I've talked to some people about this recently. There's the whole top bottom or the whole, or are we an organization in the SCA that's a bottom up governing, a top down governing, or something in between? And the people at the top always talk about the people at the bottom having power, but those at the bottom, myself included, often don't feel like we have power, don't feel like we have a place. So I'm going to tell a story, and I'm going to talk about this. These are my personal experiences. These are my sort of personal goings on within the society, specifically within Meridia's. So let me color that as this. This is strictly my personal experience. I hope others have different experiences with this, and I'm sure others will disagree with things that I say or do or have done in this, but that's okay. I'm also going to try very hard to be non-specific in this because I do not want to disparage anyone involved in the other side of the story because they are lovely people and do not deserve any kind of ill remarks or things like that. But what occurred is sort of an example. Okay, so as a caveat, I am unattached. I'm unassociated. I do not have a peer. Have not in my 4.5 years of SCA. I've talked to quite a few and have been in conversations for that, but have never really never fulfilled that or never took that next step for various reasons. This is actually an example of one of those. So I was approached by a peer recently and was offered a belt. It was offered, or was offered the conversation at least. It was always, hey, I want to have a conversation with you about this, about you becoming my associate. And again, I'm using associate, I'm using peer, so that this is a completely nondescript discussion. So this person, I started talking. Great conversation. It was super amenable. We disagreed on a couple things, but I'll get into some of those in a second, specifically about my path and things like that. But conversation is going on for a day or two, and then this person went back to their household and started discussing things with their household, which is cool. That's great, And I started going to their household and started talking to other people within their household because they have they are one chunk of a larger household. The next day, I got a message from them saying, "Oh, thanks, but no thanks." It's out of nowhere. And I was like, "Oh, all right. This is a person that I have known for many years and trusted and looked up to, as both as a person and as a peer." So I kind of stepped back and went, "Oh, all right, that's a weird, like, nothing changed within our conversation. So clearly the only change was external to that. Somebody that they talked to within their household or within my local area or something of that nature. Um, so it was surprising to me the shift happened that quickly. So I ended up messaging him later and say, okay, what happened? What went on? And it was a potential for conflict within their organization, within their household. And this person was very conflict averse, and I get that. I am definitely not the easiest person, and won't be the easiest person to take on as an associate. For any peers watching, if you're interested in me, I'm not easy. I come with baggage. I come with problems. Don't get me wrong. But this whole thing, it hurt. It really stuck with me because I was excited. This is a person that I was like, oh, this is this is a really good person, a really person I think I can learn from, and could definitely see myself being associated with. Good household, good people, So I got to thinking, it was odd to me that this person came to me without having discussed with her household at all, without doing any background checks on me or sort of any discussions with their household. And I'm not saying that wasn't the right way to do it. Wasn't not saying that there's not some conversations that can be had between the peer and associate before making it more official. Oh, more Brian, and that's true. Yeah, you're right. I run a show about my opinions on the SCA. There's going to be conflict. You're absolutely correct. My buddy Master Brian from SCA. But I at least have a peer watching, so he can tell me how crazy my opinion is here. Anyways, so there is some things you said that a peer coming to an associate saying, hey, just sort of having some get to know you at first, right? Especially if they don't really know the person well. But it really brought to light the idea that there is an imbalance of power within that relationship, right? So in any relationship, once the relationship is negotiated, so whether it's peer associate or if you look in into the fetish world stuff, the master mistress level stuff from the fetish side, which is really funny. It's really funny watching the lines there, or even just in a mundane boyfriend girlfriend relationship, right? It's always negotiated. There's always a negotiation of what do you expect to get out of this relationship? What does either side want? And either side can end it at any time, right? And that's true in the SCA. That even if you're a peer and associate, either side can end that relationship at any time for any reason. There's no actual contract. I don't care how many apprentice contracts you see that have all sorts of flowery words in them. They mean literally nothing from a legal standpoint or from a actual doing any kind of impact. They only mean as much as we allow them to mean. But there are those of us, myself included, who really play into the the knight squire, pelican protege, laurel apprentice dynamic, and that the person on the top of that slash is important and is revered and is powerful. Giant air quotes, powerful, right? But that leaves the person on the bottom side of that, the potential associate or the associate, in a really weird place, a really awkward place that they can't do as much. So I talk about people in the SCA a lot that people tell me, oh, well, you don't need to be associated. It's not required. Nobody ever has to be associated. That's strictly voluntary. And you're correct. You're absolutely correct that association with the SCA is strictly voluntary. I am sure that anybody out there can name me 100 people who've been successful in the SCA that have not been associated, or they could show me peers that have become peers in their own right in a circle that was not their own. So protege becoming a laurel, squire becoming a pelican, whatever. But it's difficult. It is difficult to excel in the SCA without that association, because there is some political power, there is some backing that peer gives you as a person that is difficult to overcome without that. You know, I think myself personally, I've been fairly successful in the SCA and have gotten some awards and have gotten into offices and have enjoyed myself without this association. But there is something that's missing. And there's something that I've been looking for as far as the household, that official dynamic. But it leaves me on the hunt, right? It leaves me searching for that. And because, and again, this is Meridier specific, because Meridier has had a long-standing thing about whether it's okay to approach a peer or not, and whether it's okay to start those discussions from the prospective associate side. And there are some peers who want it. There's some peers who say, "No, please come talk to me." You know, you know, how do I know you want to learn from me if you don't come talk to me? And that's cool. I appreciate peers that are like that. But there are also some peers that are the exact opposite of that, that think that it should be strictly the peers' prerogative to choose you and to approach you. That's really tough. It's really a tough thing because it gives them more of that. Let's see. Let's see what Jenny says. I actively sought out a Meridian foster peer. My peer is Atlantean, because I knew that if I wanted to follow the path to Pelican, I'd need an addict for me in those circles. See, that's correct. Okay. So that's the biggest thing about. So there's sort of like, I guess we can sort of peel back and look at what does a peer give you, right? What do you need from a peer? So if you're a person who is aspiring to be one of the peerage, you need an advocate. You need somebody in that circle to speak for you to accelerate that career, right? Now, you don't have to have that, right? You can become a peer in your own right without that advocate. It is just significantly easier to do that with a peer in that circle. And that's important. So if you have a peer that is out of kingdom, having a foster peer in this kingdom is helpful. So that's really interesting, actually, that it came up. And that's something that's come up with me in my career. I was speaking to a knight who was out of kingdom, and one of the things I was told was that if I was being belted to a out of kingdom knight in Meridiers would actually keep me from becoming a knight in Meridiers. No, that's not true. There have been knights that have been made in Meridiers that were squire to out of kingdom knights, but it definitely won't make it easier. It definitely won't be an equivalent path to someone who is a Meridian, who's squire to Meridian knight. Now, I don't know if that's specific to the Shiv. I don't know if that's specific to Meridiers, but I can see where not having that advocate in the circle is important. And so it's funny, my actual response to that at the time was that I didn't care. That when I was looking for a peer, I was looking for someone who inspired me, and who lit my fire, and was someone who I could work with to become a better person, and to in turn become a peer and become a peer in my own right. Basically, I didn't care. I was gonna be knightly whether they made me a knight or not, and that's still my goal, for the record, I will be knightly whether I'm ever declared a knight or not. I will be a peer of the society whether I'm a peer or not. Sorry, my phone thought I said something to it. So on that path, though, you're absolutely correct, Fiora, that having a peer within this circle, within the circle of your kingdom, is important. See what Brian has to say. All of my associations were asked of me. My white scarf approached me, and my laurel pell approached me. I have been approached to take associates, and I've asked people they want to be my associate. There is no one single answer. You're correct. And please don't at all think I'm saying there's one single way to do this. And that's great for you, Brian. Brian's in Fiora, for those of you who don't know. And I'm sure this is very much there's an inter-kingdom anthropology thing going on here, that Meridiers may have some holdover things from 10 years ago that are still sort of hanging around, of the peer having that power. And I'm seeing a lot less of it, And I do see a lot less of it in the Laurel community, and a lot less less of it in the Pelican community. But it does still hang around. There is still some of the old guards, so to speak, that are very much, I'm not going to say pretentious, but like that higher, they see themselves as a higher rank, therefore they are the ones that should be doing the approaching. To cycle back to the imbalance power, then. So I've sort of hinted on the idea that peer has the power in this relationship and has more of the power because they control it, right? So ultimately, both parties make the decision. So if a peer approached me and said, "Hey, I want you to be my associate," I could say no, and I have power in that, right? And vice versa. If I approach them and they say no, cool. The problem is, from what I have noticed, is me saying no and them saying no have two very different effects on the other person. So if a peer approaches me and I say no, there is a higher political backlash, for lack of a better term, outcome sort of, a surrounding thing. So the person I spoke of earlier, their discussions they have with their household about me has potentially had a much higher impact on me in the negative because they dug up some old dirt. I've got some old dirt that I am more than happy to talk about to anybody who wants to know about it. I'm not going to do it publicly here because it's not the place to do it. But if anyone wants to know my dirt, please ask me. I'll let you know. I'll give you the full story about why my history and why I have trouble in my local group and the whole thing. Don't care. I'll tell you all about it. But because it dug up a lot of old dirt on me, and I don't know what that's done for me politically in this kingdom now. Because this person is part of a well-connected household, and them telling me no, them rescinding their offer has left me paranoid. I won't even lie, because I don't know what's being said about me. Now, had I said no, when they approached me in the first place and I wasn't interested or didn't like this person or whatever, and I just said no, there's really no change for them. They keep going with what they're doing and are on their merry way, and nothing really hurts. There's no way for me to hurt them politically with that, whereas it's very much the other way around. That's what I'm talking about, the imbalance of power. Now, there's another part of the imbalance of power of the peers and the rest of us, right? And this is coming out of the personal role, looking at myself as a member of the populace, specifically the unbelted, unassociated populace, right? So there's a thing I have noticed, and this is I've talked to with my friend Rebecca about this, with her, and I'm hoping to have her and a couple others on for a talk at some point about political efficacy in the SCA, because it's very much touching on this. And we see this also in modern politics as well, that the people who should have the power often end up don't having the power, and that my vote doesn't matter, right? So I know a lot of times I've voted in mundane elections that I feel like it's pointless, and my vote actually is not doing anything. And realistically, you can look at a couple things where it actually isn't. So being that the SCA is a microcosm of our greater world, my voice as a member of the populace, as an unassociated, non-peer member of the populace, has very little impact. Now, I think my voice in the SCA has more impact than my vote politically does, personally. But there is some things that if I were to say, say a thing, and a peer or a associate to a peer says that exact same thing a day later, their words have more weight. Plain, simple, end of story. Now, there is some good reason for that. Don't get me wrong. Theoretically, as a peer, that person has more experience. They have more connection. They have more knowledge. They have more information, right? So those peers sit in circles that I don't. And I extend this to royal peers as well, not just bestowed peers. That those people sit in circles. Those people have seen people and talked to people that I've never, right? So they theoretically have more knowledge and more information. It doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It doesn't mean that what I said was incorrect. But their words carry more weight because they have those two letters behind their name. Um, and that's true. It's just, I think anybody who disagrees with that, I would argue with. And please let me know if you do. But and I'm also not saying that all peers are right. I'm also not saying that all peers are correct in things they say. And we have a lot of really terrible people that are peers. And a lot of them are being removed or removing themselves in the SCA currently. And I'm happy for that, frankly. But unfortunately, it does still leave, they do still have that power as well because they're peers. And I think our peers are working on that as well. But sort of that's a tangent point of the trash taking itself out. Actually, it came up recently where I was in a conversation out in the West Kingdom. We're on a thread for people in the West Kingdom. But was asked by a person in the conversation, well, how many peerages do you have? And I was like, oh, is this a peer conversation? I looked around to make sure I was in the right thread, and it wasn't. It was just a thread on space wall. And it was basically told that because this person was a double peer, or I'm sorry, actually a triple peer. I think she was a Laurel Pelican royal peer. That her words had more weight. That she knew what she was talking about because she was a peer. And I was like, oh, all right. Now, people I've talked to, people have referenced since then have went, no, she's actually a terrible person. No way to listen to her anyways. But regardless, that opinion where she expressed it to me is not one that's uncommon. So I found it interesting. And I've talked to a lot of people here in Meridia's after that conversation and other conversations since then that have told me, oh, no, Cal, you're fine. You're doing great. Tell me all your things. Have all your opinions, right? And that's cool. And I appreciate that. And by the way, everybody watching this, thank you for actually listening to my opinion. Thank you for caring enough to hang out with me this morning. But it's still tough. It's still really tough. So let's see. This is super rambly, guys. I'm sorry. So far, my talks have been a little more pointed. This one's more of just a personal beef with me, so it's a little more rambly. So bear with me. I'm trying to sort of find some logic in all of this. So I mentioned something earlier about being successful in the SCA, and that it's tough to be successful in the SCA without a peer or without association, right? So 10 years ago, when I played previously, and by the way, I've talked to people since then. This is less of a problem now than it was then, but it was 10 years ago. It was improper to start a household if you're not a peer. And I don't even say improper. It was frowned upon. It was literally a personal affront to some people. So at the time, my friends and I, we had a couple of friends here in Osprey that weren't really a fan of the whole peer associate thing. Didn't see a need for it, and thought we were people who wanted to do some good. We saw a hole that needed to be filled of people catering to new people that was not being done in households that were. It was literally you were either in a household or you weren't, and if you weren't, you were sort of out in the cold. So we started a household. We started a non-peerage household for anybody else who wanted to be. It was a ragtag group of people that were just literally us catering to helping new people start. It was sort of a place people could land until they found their spot. And that's what we pitched as. We said, hey, look, we're open to all. Anybody else come hang out with us? Here's a spot. Because back then the peerage houses were very insular, were very disconnected. Not nearly as they are today. I've seen a lot of peerage households that are much more welcoming now than they were 10 years ago. So we started this household, and we caught a lot of crap for it. Basically because none of us were there. Was not a peer in the household. We were all unbelts, all strictly disconnected. And there's a lot of peers and Meridias that gave us a lot of crap, and essentially ruined some peer talk for me. I mean, because I was in talk with a few peers because of a peer just something I wanted. And this was 10 years ago too, so I was a little more belt chasing then than I am today. But we caught a lot of flack for it, and I don't know how much of my issues that I had then were connected to that. I had my own issues too because I was a hothead and didn't take criticism well, but it's because it wasn't proper. Now we weren't taking associates. We weren't giving out squires belts. We weren't And we were also being very careful to not breaking the rules. I'm a big proponent of rules and following rules, specifically because if you don't follow if you don't follow fake rules like our sumptuary rules, all of our kingdom law is fake. All of our kingdom law is made up, and it's all make believe, right? Very little of our kingdom law is actual like legal stuff. It's all what fancy hat you can wear. Okay, but we made sure when we were doing this that we followed all the laws. So we made sure we had a standard, we had a flag, we had a banner that we put up that was not breaking the rules. We didn't wear any hats, we didn't wear belts, we made sure none of that was wrong. I'm going to catch up on some comments here. Politics within the SCA can put a damper on the simple enjoyment of the SCA experience. If someone chooses to mentor me, that's great. Otherwise, I'm simply content to interact with me. My interests are wide. Okay, and Jeannie, I'll get to that in a second because that's actually where I was getting with this. I think this is definitely an kingdom anthropology study. When I first came to Meridian in the middle, the prevalence of household was something that took a long time to get used to. You're right. No, yeah. No, Meridian is very much household-centric and very helpful. I just read that kind of fast. Meridian is very belt, pure, household-focused. Very. And I don't, having not lived into the kingdom, I don't know why. So those of you who have, maybe give me some ideas about why. My guess would be that it's because of the distance between local groups. So for instance, for me on Osprey, I've got one other group within an hour of me, an hour and 15 minutes or so, and that's it. The next group is like 4 hours away. Whereas if you're in Atlanta, you can throw a rock any direction and hit two other groups. So there's a little more of ability to branch out, right? So if you don't like your local group for whatever reason, you can go 30 minutes another direction and find another group. That's not the case on the coast, and it's not the case in the reaches of the kingdom. I don't know if that's the exact cause, but that's sort of my cause for looking for a household, is because of my problems with my local group and the needs I have. Where was I? So yeah, so like I said, this household thing we started, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, and it gave us a sort of a grouping to do things with. So I say all that because it's needed. Within the SCA, you as a single person cannot be successful. So I'm gonna let that sink in for a second, because I want you to think back. All of you that are watching, think back in your SCA career. How many times were you as a single person successful? You say, oh, well, Cal, I ran an event one time. I was super successful at that event. You ran that event? Did you? You had no help? Didn't have any advice? Didn't have any people to help you working under you, working with you? Okay. It was either your local group or it was your household that helped you. Somebody was there behind you, right? This channel, Kalbardr's Corner by itself, like you're like, oh, this is Cal's creation. It's not. I have been very fortunate to have a lot of really good people help me with this. My wife and girlfriend here have both helped me do my graphics and help me bounce ideas and all that. I've had a lot of great guests, Brian and Elena. Oh God, I'm blanking now. Sekit and Fiken and Oyong. I mean, all these people have helped me do stuff and have bounced ideas off. Oyong's working on my website right now. Like, it's impossible to work as a singular person, and I've struggled to build a network of people that care for me and appreciate me for what I am and what I'm trying to accomplish here. That it's tough. But if I had a household, if I had a local group that supported me, it's 2 phone calls and I've got a flock of people helping me because they're my household, because they have that connection already, right? So I've had to, pull myself up by my bootstraps, so to speak, to use the parlance, the modern phrase there. Whereas if I had that household, it'd be a different story. So it's interesting. It very much shows that the need for that household, or that need for that dynamic, to be successful. Meridians and mid-realm have a lot. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Again, I'm very much speaking from a very Meridian-centric attitude here. I've never lived in the kingdom. I've never been outside. I've been outside the kingdom. I've been to Glen Albyn and Tramiris. That's it. and only then just sort of sticking my toes in the water. So I'm unfamiliar with other kingdoms' politics or structure. I've got a little bit of stuff from the West now. I know a lot of folks are out West and things, and so I've gotten a little bit of their political backgrounds and sort of landscapes, but not as much as I would like. No man is an island. If you think you can do everything on your own, your head is up someplace dark. That's correct. Thank you for that, Brian. Very pointed. I agree, and it's possible my experience was colored by the fact that I'm starting a university student group, so it's naturally much less household focused. You're absolutely correct there. I've always been curious about whether or not I'd have a different opinion if I had been external to that. That's right, Mark. Right. I think the people that start in college groups that are very much transient already don't have that problem as much. So Mobile doesn't have a college. We've never had a college group. We have a college here in Mobile, so we've had some transient people, but they've always just been part of Osprey. They've never been. We've never had a college specific group. So I can see, but being in Atlanta, I can see that's a different thing again because the amount of groups that are there. You can have those smaller groups that function. I'm also, as an aside, this may be a topic later. I'm not a fan of our current barony shire structure. Short version, I think baronies should be regional groups and shires should be local groups. Because actually, you know what? This works. Imbalance power in the SCA. I think baronies have more powers than they should. I think baronies give a singular local group more power than another. For instance, I, being in a barony, have an ability to get more awards and attend more courts and work as a herald more than those people in shires. They don't have that opportunity. So looking at Arenal as a group at the hour 15 to my east, they don't have Baron and Baroness, they don't have a cornet, they don't have the opportunity to participate in courts and do the royal stuff, except on a kingdom level. And I think that the fact that we have a Baron and Baroness in Osprey, and in South Downs and Glanville, this is not an Osprey specific problem. This is a sort of barony problem. Gives us more power on the political side to do more than other groups and shires do. So I think personally that baronies should be regional. So you have a chunk of meridians, chunk of your kingdom governed by a barony, which is actually sort of, historically speaking, what would have happened is you have your greater kingdom and you have a baronial land holding that is controlled by that baron to make the king's job easier, which is sort of the point, right? And we've grown up that any group can become a barony strictly based on size. But that barony, because right now it's based on size, based on reporting, based on all these criteria, right? Now Mobile has more political power because we have a Baron Baroness and we have something that's our connection to the crown. Whereas Arenal, Flint Marsh, Red Wolf Den, all these little shires don't have that. When I lived in the Mid-Realm, the barony was like an umbrella corp. All the local events were hosted by individual cantons. Yes, so I think that's the idea, Brian. That's what I'm talking about, is the barony becomes the umbrella region, right? And then you have your shires, your cantons, or whatever underneath it. Now, the problem with that, and the problem I've seen here locally, is that when those people in that canton and that shire don't want to play with the barony because of who's running it. But that's because the barony is a group by itself, not just a baron and baroness. So realistically, if I had all the power in the world and I was king of all Londinium here, there would be a king and queen selected by whatever method we choose to select them by, and they would choose a baron and baroness for a region. So you have south, east, northwest, whatever regions you want to concoct based on size, right? And so the barony of that region would only be a baron and baroness, maybe like a seneschal, or like the ombudsman or something, a regional person. So you have your crown and your legal covered, and that's it. There's no exchequer, there's no herald, there's no like people. They have their court and their retinue, just like their majesties have a retinue, right, of people that help them do their royal things, but like they don't have a group under them. And then all the local groups, Mobile, Pensacola, Montgomery, whatever, are shires or cantons or whatever, right? So do we need shires in the system? In this kingdom, Brian, shires are just bigger cantons, I think. And you and I can connect about what you mean by that directly. But so once if you have your barony as your regional group, right, then you have your shires, cantons, whatever you want to call them, as your actual local group, right? And that way, all local groups have equal political power. So you have the Shire of Osprey, right? And then they're under the barony of the Southeast region. What are you going to call that? So that barony of the Southeast region covers Mobile, Pensacola, Montgomery, whatever, right? And you have the barony of South Downs. Instead of barony of South Downs, it's the Shire of South Downs, and you have your eastern region of barony that covers all of those groups, which is realistically what happens. But you don't often see groups like Osprey, for instance. I don't see the barony of Osprey giving awards to Airnall because it's not currently done. It's not proper. If they're not in this group, they don't get awards from this group. And honestly, it would give the Baron and Baroness more to do. I'm not saying they don't have more to do. And anybody home here who has been a territorial Baron and Baroness, I don't think I've seen any names that I recognize for that. But, that's a thought. It's not going to happen anytime soon. It's only not something we can do. But it's another point of that imbalance of power. I am very much my general political opinion, my general SCA opinion is everybody is equal. Within the SCA, we have people with fancy hats that have more power, and because they have fancy hats or fancy belts, they have more power, and that's okay. In make-believe world, that's okay. In a legal world, that's not okay. So I used to play in a live-action role-playing alert group, the actual spell packets and the buffer up and everything. And I was a customer, so I paid a fee to show up and play a game, just like in the SCA. And once that game started, I knew my place. Right? I was this level. I had this many powers. I had this much sword. Right? And I knew that group over there was that, and this group over here was this, and because this guy has this hat, he's more important. But before that game starts, we're all equal. I don't care what Baron, King, whatever you are within this game. At 9 o'clock Friday, when we're still setting up, we're equivalent. So I would show up first. A lot of times we were the first ones on site because we were I had nothing to do. I had to get off early on Fridays and go there. But we also got in there early because I decorated. We decorated our cabin, so we probably tried to get there a little early. There was a time where we showed up 5 o'clock when the gates opened, got in, checked in, paid our fees, went to our cabin, right? Got all our decorations put up, hung out, did our thing, and then somewhere around 10 o'clock, one of the baronies rolled in. And I use baronies because that's what they called them. That was one of their groups, right? One of the in-game groups showed up, and we took up more room than they thought we should have, or we were in their space or whatever. And they told us to move. They tried to get us to move, and actually caused a big fight about it out of game. We had a game fight about it because they wanted more room or whatever. We were there first, and we ended up actually getting relocated because of that. Because that barony needed more room, or they needed room differently, or they needed to set up something wrong. I don't know the exact details of it was, but it was an issue. And in game, I agree. They're a barony. They have more political power than I do. Out of game, they were playing customers like I was, and I was there first. So I have an issue with that. So I think the SCA is a good thing of that. Out of game, right? Out of play Monday morning, we're all equivalent. We all go to work the same way. We all have the same responsibilities in life. But in game, when we're talking about the knights, the pelicans, the laurels, the kings, the queens, the barons, baronesses, right? That king, that baron, that knight have more political power than I do. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that person being closer to that crown, right? From the make-believe side. And I talked about this a little bit last week in the 3 aspects thing. But that person has a little more power. From the legal side, from the hobby club, from the grouping, it's not the case. At that point, it sounds almost like a principality. Yeah, exactly, Brian. So basically, that's what it needs to be. Is you have your kingdom, and then your regional groupings underneath it, right? So the difference, I think, in the principality versus the king versus a kingdom barony under the structure I'm discussing is that the power dynamic doesn't change between the barony and the kingdom. It just becomes a more regional based person. I mean, we already have it. There's already great examples of this. We have our regional ombudsmen, we have our regional web ministers, we have our regional deputies. We're getting more regional things, right? We understand that the singular person, the king, the seneschal, the web minister, can't do it all themselves. So they put out regional representatives to help them administer this very, very large area. But you know, it's the difference in a principality, from what I understand, though, is that principality is essentially by itself being helped by the kingdom. Now, realistically, so if we have the southeast baronial region, right? So we'll call it the southeast baronial region. So everything from Montgomery down or whatever. If at some point that southeast baronial region grew to a point where they were big enough on their own to be a principality, look, then you got a principality. Or the northeast, you know, you have these groups that can then break off and become their own principalities and become their own kingdoms because they have grown big enough within their own right to be a kingdom. So yes, I think that's a logical point for that. It does sound like principality because that's what it is. The difference is what power they have. So that at that point they wouldn't be selected by combat; they'd be selected by the king. Same way they are now. They would have more to do because they'd be fostering multiple groups. And I'm sure that there are baron and baroness out there that are screaming because they already have enough to do. And I fully understand that. For those of you who are in those roles, you're amazing. And most of you are really good at your jobs. But I think there are people that are being unsupported. There are people that are not getting that that culture because they're not living in a group that is big enough to be a barony. So you don't have that support from the barony that's there. And I'm sure, I mean, Southdowns is a great example. Southdowns does a really great job of making sure that the groups around them are supported and they allow other groups in to do stuff with them. But it shouldn't be a question of whether they're allowed. So I always see people asking, "Hey, can we get on this? Can we participate in this thing?" Yes, you can participate in this thing. Come on in, right? But as a barony, they should be. That should be the default, not the other way around. All right, I got like one sip left. Questions, comments, concerns? Thank you, everybody, for commenting today and participating. This has been a lot of fun. I was actually really concerned about this conversation because this is, excuse me, this is a bit of a political hot button, and we're in a really weird place politically right now in the SCA. So it's like I don't want to rock the boat on things that don't need to be rocked, but also I have thoughts and I need to express them. And I think part of a thing we can do to fix some of our problems is talk about them. I think we don't talk about things enough, and we don't get our opinions out enough. And I realized last week that this thing for me, specifically the Coffee with Kalbardr, not as much my teaching stuff, but this specifically for me, is a way for people to get to know me. And because I am disconnected, and being down on the coast and being sort of away from the other groups as much, I don't get a lot of the interpersonal connectivity stuff. It's happening more now because of the ESCA, but that people getting to know me is a lot more difficult because it takes me 6 hours to get to an event to hang out around a campfire versus some of you are 10 minutes, right? So I realized that this platform is actually a great way for people to get to know me and for peers to get to know me. So it wasn't my intention, but here's my resume. Enjoy. Yeah, Margabati, that's exactly right. So she says to my point about power imbalance is peers. I think it's important for us to listen to people so we can help affect good change. Correct. And that's I think that's the good side of the power imbalance, because those peers that are good have the power to affect change. And if they use that power correctly and well and not like a bludgeon, it can be successful. You guys, the peers in this kingdom, are advocates, are the guiding force, and there's so much that you guys could do. And yeah, let me speak to the camera, speak to the peers directly. Peers of our kingdom, peers of the society, you can affect change. Please do it. Right? There is so much that y'all can do to make this better, to fix the problems we have, and to move forward. If you want to, you have to want to. But we gotta stop fighting, guys. We gotta stop fighting over dumb stuff. Like, let's fight over the good stuff. Let's fight other things. Let's fight the problems and stop fighting amongst ourselves about dumb stuff. And I know that's way easier to say than it is to do. But no, yeah. I was just talking to. Okay, so way off topic here, but it talks about the power thing. I was talking to somebody the other day about I'm working on a heraldic handbook as part of my job within the heraldic community. And one of the things that we don't have a sort of structure of the College of Heralds and Herediers, at least not defined. I've noticed that this is sort of a common problem: is there are not rules and regs and documents for how we function. We have corpora, we have kingdom law, right? But we don't have the sort of day-to-day stuff. We've been functioning under it. We've been doing these things for so long. We've just sort of accepted that's how we do them. Nobody's ever written down, how these circles work, or how the baronies function, or how this or that group works, right? How this guild works. We have some vague charters and things, but nobody really says, okay, well, when the peerage circle has a vote, here's how the vote's conducted, here's how this works. Or if it is, it's not a publicly available document. And I think that's a problem. I think having things be non-public that are governing documents is a poor decision. If those exist, those of you who are in these peerage circles, please let me know. But I know at least for the night circles, I've talked to some nights recently, that it does not exist and is being worked on. So yay for that. But we are way too secret about things in this society as well. I'm all for let's be secret about things that need to be secret, and let's keep a word secret, and let's the surprise is part of the fun. Although I hate surprises, by the way, but that's my personal thing. I've actually really enjoyed virtual courts because I get to know whether I'm getting called up before court happens, so I can know whether I'm carrying or not. I don't care what award I'm getting, but I like to know. I like to know I'm getting something so I can be prepared for that. But but the things like governing documents and how we function and how we work with like R&Ds and how we remove peerages or how we gain peerages, or like those things, like they're so secretive that it's literally causing us to like be paranoid about things. And I get part of it. The SCA is very careful about libel and slander, and they don't want to get sued. I understand that. But I think we've gone too far the way of being secretive instead of being open about how we function. That's my thought. One more. All right. Nope. That, folks, is an empty coffee cup. So, final thought. I will mimic their majesties from yesterday. They ended their court with an amazing thought. It was, be excellent to each other and revel on. We're in a really crappy place right now. We're in a really crappy time. Although, admittedly, and Kisa said this yesterday, she's actually had more fun in the SCA since COVID hit than she had previously. So, it is this pandemic has done a lot to bring a lot of us closer together, even though we're very apart. So, I thank you all for coming again. I enjoy these. I enjoy talking to you guys. As always, if there's something you want to talk about, you have a question for me, if you want a topic you want to hear my opinion on, let me know. You can ping me in the comments. You can send me a message. Most of you know me personally, so you can send me a thing. If you want to be on a show in the future, I'd love people to come teach classes with me. I'd love people to come talk to me. I built this as a platform to help grow. Myself, others, I'm very much a proponent of lifting others up as much as I can. So if there's something I can do to help you, something I can help you get your opinion out, please let me know. So anyways, on that topic, or on that note, As always, I'm Kalbardr, and this has been Coffee with Kalbardr and Kalbardr's Corner. So, thanks, guys.